everyone, welcome to another video on the JayBee and Milly channel. Today we are reviewing the next episode of Scooby Doo and Guess Who, which is Ollie Ollie Income Free.
Yeah.
Okay, JayBee, so this is your guest.
It's not my guest. I can confirm it's not my guest, but it's definitely the guest that I think I know the most about. Now, obviously, last time we kind of said that could have been Sherlock, but I think I'm confident that this is the one for the 4th season, and that's Ricky Gervais. Now, Ricky Gervais is someone that's gone through almost a lot of different eras in his career, so there's some parts that I know a little bit about and some parts that I'm probably completely lost on. So my introduction to Ricky Gervais would be his podcast that he did with Stephen Merchant and Carl Pilkington. He then did like classic shows like the UK Office and like Derek and stuff. Like, he did loads of stuff, so I'm quite familiar with his style. And so when I found out that he was a guest on Scooby Doo, I was very curious to see how he would blend in, because he's very, mature comedy, swearing, edgy jokes. Like, if you just watched one of his speeches at like a Golden Globe Awards or the Oscars, you'll understand that there's like such a big divide between his comedy and, Scooby Doo. It's kind of crazy.
I think there's just a big divide between UK humour and Scooby Doo, right?
Yeah, I'd say so. So, it's an interesting one. I think right off the bat, like, I'll ask you, like, how familiar are you with Ricky Gervais or any of his works?
He was just one of those guys that was always on TV. I couldn't tell you what shows it was, but they were just a prominent feature in UK humour, really.
Yeah, I suppose he's done some stuff. I mean, that's kind of connected to this. Like, he was in Night at the Museum.
Yeah.
And we've kind of got, like, artifact-related stuff here, museum-related things here, so I guess maybe if a lot of people know him from that, like that was Scooby audience, I guess it's like, oh, it's the funny museum guy in the museum, like maybe like that, I don't know.
Yeah.
So it is an interesting guess, not one that I would have chosen for Scooby Doo necessarily, but yeah, I guess we'll kick off with what we have, and I think this is not really a cold open, is it? Because we're like,
it's a little, because you're there, but you do see the villain, so that kind of makes it a cold open, even though it's not.
I mean, let's walk us through it, yeah?
I thought it started strangely. The puppets, as soon as it started with that, I was like, oh gosh, oh no, please don't. Like, don't mess this up.
Yeah, it's a weird choice.
I was kind of worried. My initial thing was concerned because I was like, I feel like we've had quite a few bad episodes in this show already, and I was like, I just don't want another one.
I mean, it was a bizarre way to start off, because I don't think Ricky Gervais has ever done any work with puppets or has even been associated with puppets. One thing I thought was nice is bringing in a bit of his personal life. Like, he does genuinely have a cat called Ollie, and centering it around that, I think, is a decent move. Like, obviously, on one hand, you kind of need to know the guy, like that type of level, to know that he's got a cat and that it's a prominent part of like his Twitter page and stuff like that. So maybe it would be lost on like the average viewer. But I think, again, like making his thing cat is very dumbed down, but it is very on theme, and I don't mind it necessarily as shorthand for this is him, this is his quirk.
Do we not think it's a little bit samey?
What?
Because, like, the last episode was in London, this episode's in London, the one before that was very cat-centric, this one, spoiler alert for the end, like 100 cats turn up, doing that same kind of scratchy claw thing that they do in that episode.
I mean, yes and no. Like, you could say that all Scooby's samey. Like, Mystery Incorporated isn't not samey because it's all in Crystal Cove or, stuff like that. It's like, there's similarities, but I think with them being so close together, like we mentioned last time, the 2 London episodes, in my own headcanon, the fact that they've not separated them, it's just, oh, I guess this is what they did the next day in London before going back to America or something.
Well, it could be that they made a name for themselves in London, and that's why when he's having this problem, they end up at his house.
Maybe. I don't know. But it is strange.
What's your thoughts on the villain? Because we see them in this open.
I kind of think it's my favourite one yet in this series. It's not so far out of the box that it's like a masterful like ingenuity in character design. Like, it is cool. I just like the idea of, you look at Egyptian like mythology, there's a lot of talks about characters like Anubis and stuff like that, And so to fuse the two, I don't think I've ever seen that done before. Like a massive cat that's a mummy. I think that's such a cool concept. I think the character's voiced pretty well. But also, as we'll see later on, kind of like what I was saying with that Pet Shop episode, it would have been cool if the monster had something that could control the pets or even utilize the pets. And here we do get that with the cats. Like, he's only used one instance in the villain's favour, but just the way it was set up, like the cat lurking in the alleyway and then breathing the dust up into the sky. I think it's one of the potentially freakier villains from this series. So I like that.
I did comment that aesthetically I love the villain. I really like what they did with it. You know, you were saying there about the magic dust though? That's kind of one of the words I wrote down was magic. And to me, I think it's just because of how Warner Brothers are. I was like, please don't mess this one up, because it almost seemed a bit supernaturally like they had some kind of supernatural control, and we know that Warner Brothers don't like that, so it's like, oh god, what excuse they're going to come up with towards the end of this to justify things. However, they didn't do that, so I was pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, I also like how it was the most like homage to the original series as well. It's dumbed down, like, you know, it's, I mean, a lot of people like cherish the original series as like a masterstroke in like animation and writing, and it definitely deserves respect, but I wouldn't go that far. But I like that they harkened back to those simpler times where, say, the Mummy and Scooby Doo and the Mummy 2, you get shorthand from that character that he wants the coin because he goes coin. Whereas here we've got statue. I like that kind of almost zombific simplification. Like, we know what the character wants because he keeps saying it, but also it is potentially creepy as well.
One thing that I did like is because Ricky Gervais is a comedian, it kind of illustrated the stark contrast between US and UK humour. You know, like when he was making the joke about his birthday and stuff with the fire extinguisher. I wasn't as lost as they were. I was kind of like, oh yeah, I kind of see what he means.
Well, that's my thing. On one hand, I know that I didn't find a lot of what Ricky Gervais was saying in this episode particularly funny. Like, I think it's far from prime Ricky Gervais, but understandably so, because he needs to be watered down a lot and you know, whatnot to fit in with the world of Scooby. But it was definitely that way of saying, like, the one thing that we can do quite well here is self-deprecating humour. Like, it's almost to the point where a lot of our TV shows, we just love laughing at the ordinary, like the mundane aspect of life. Like, we just love laughing at each other, essentially. Whereas, like, even just compare the UK office to the US office, more often than not, it's outright jokes about another person or another character. Whereas here, it's just, oh, it's funny to wake up every day and be miserable. Like, it's just, it's a bit like that, so I enjoyed it. I just wonder how many people over in the States would react to this episode. Because I could imagine them finding, say, someone like Ricky Gervais quite cringy in the same way that I started off the Wanda Sykes episode saying that I didn't find it particularly funny. So,
yeah, it's a different type of humour, I guess. Like, I found it funny, you know, towards the end, and then I'm skipping a lot out here, where Velma's like, oh, it's all starting to come together, and he's like, just say it, just say what's going on. Because, let's be real, we all sit there and say that, right? And I like that it was a UK person that's blunt enough to say it to her.
Yeah, it's very, like, fourth wall breaking. And, you know, I think this may be the first time as well, like, I don't know for the others, but I'm convinced that there was some more heart put into this on Ricky Gervais's part, because I know that he's a fan of Scooby and Hanna-Barbera more than you would expect. So with the Ricky Gervais show, when they brought that to animation, because it was so popular that they made it like an animated series instead of just a podcast, like they actually animated like some of the conversations they had, and he purposely wanted all of the characters to be in classic Hanna-Barbera style. And also, I think there was some charity thing he did ages ago that he like drew a picture of Scooby Doo and signed it. So I do think there was a bit more understanding there, because I think if you get another person mentioning the lines like the catchphrases and stuff like that, you would almost cynically look at that as this is just, you know, like Velma. It's like going for all the low hanging fruit, like stuff that you can pick apart about the original series. It did. And here you can argue the same thing, but I think it's done with a bit more sincerity, that it isn't just a cringe fest.
Yeah, no, I agree. What's your thoughts on the kind of plot of this? Like, they want the statue. Also, that kind of... The chase sequence gets underway quite early in this. They see Velma in the bath. Fred kind of sat like a chair. Daphne is the lamp. They kind of take that box early, which kind of left me with a question, where do they take this? But I think, unlike the last episode, they actually did know where they wanted to take it. I think last time it was just, we've got this great concept, let's do Sherlock, and we don't know where to take it. Whereas with this, they were like, you know, we've got Ricky Gervais, we've got a cat, we've got a statue, this is where we want to take it, this is the locations, this is how we pull it together.
I mean, like, it's very bare bones. Like, monster wants object. Why, if we assume the monster's fake, it's probably gonna be, it's a valuable object that they can sell to get rich. Like, it's very bare bones, like every episode in this series so far. It's like, it's a bit like an endoskeleton. Maybe this is just because I'm playing and like thinking about FNAF too much, but it's like an endoskeleton. You can either put the most unappealing, bland, like, duck in the endoskeleton suit and have it reciting the most boring literature, or you can have a fun, wacky, zany thing. You strip it all down, it's the same endoskeleton, but I think certain episodes dress it up a lot better. And I think so far, for all it's had the same beats, like, I think every single episode of this series has had the hallway scene. Like, it's very rinse and repeat, but I think that some has more style. Like, this villain has more style to it than the others. I think the guest fits slightly better than some of the others, and the setting is good. It's just, again, it would have been nice to see just something different done with the story.
I didn't hate the story, though.
You can't hate the story, because there's nothing to hate about the story. It's just Scooby. There's stuff there that a villain wants.
That's true.
Like, and
you can't hate it because it's formulaic.
You shouldn't expect to change it too much. It's just, you can't hate it. It's. This is what I used to describe the plot of the series. It's white bread and water. There's nothing wrong with it. It gets you from A to B. It's just nothing flavoursome. Now, it's easy to think neutrally about this. Like, Be Cool Scooby Doo say it's really, really sweet. Some people hate sweet food. Some people like sweet food. Some people are just meh about it. And Mystery Incorporated, really, really spicy. Some people hate spicy. Some people can't tolerate it. Other people love it. Whereas this, I've never met anyone, besides maybe you, that hates white bread and water. But it's more genuinely appealing. It's just, there's no kick to it.
No one likes white bread and water.
No, but it's functional. It's functional. It keeps you alive.
But isn't that what I was saying in episode 1, that it was the vibe you got? It was the new kid at school that didn't want to push the envelope because they wanted to fit in.
Yeah.
And that's what this does, is it's formulaic, it's core Scooby. It doesn't push the envelope so you can't hate it, but it doesn't change enough or risk anything to re-engage you in a way you've never engaged before.
Yeah. I guess I will say there's a little bit of things that surprised me about this episode, and that was simply how much better some of the acting seemed from the Sherlock episode. So, again, this is very stereotypical, but in the shop, the antique shop, there was that posh guy that turned out to be the crook. For all he was putting on a very upper-class London accent, it seemed like a genuine upper-class London accent. Now, I don't know a single person that actually speaks like that in my day-to-day life.
You went to private school.
I didn't. But for all that's the case, I know that there are people in London that speak like that, unlike the kind of caricatures that we were getting from the Sherlock episode. So I liked that. I was also a little bit surprised at the representation of the other person in the antique shop. I think that was almost low-hanging fruit, but it fit in very well with a Ricky Gervais style episode. Because he gets accused of punching down a lot, which you can argue, but I do think that bit worked.
See, you were saying about how the acting was better, but do you not think it's just because the characters are more defined? So when you read that script, you know you're interacting with Ricky Gervais. You know who that is. That's a tangible entity. Whereas with the last one, you were interacting with Sherlock that wasn't Sherlock. It was a Sherlock trying to be Sherlock that maybe was a bit like Sherlock.
Maybe, but even without the guest star in mind, what I was thinking of was the antique dealer. You think, antique shop, London, it's going to be posh. Nothing in there is going to be below like £100, £200. So I can get that posh accent like, oh, hello, tally-ho, chaps. What would you like today? Would you like some of our rare antique vases? Or would you care for some pocket watches? What can I interest you today, chap? You know what I mean? Stuff like that. Versus the policeman in episode 1. Ah, tally-ho, chap. Top of the morning, governor. Want to claw up the apples and pears? It's like no copper in London speaks like that. What are you doing?
You did not just say copper. You're just trying to be Yorkshire now. Not Yorkshire. You're trying to be British now.
What am I?
You've never said copper in your life. You're just trying to sound British to make a point.
Okay, no. What am I meant to call them?
You always would say police person.
No. What I don't know what to call them. No bacon speaks like that. Like, even if we went to London now, I will go to London tonight and commit every possible crime, and I guarantee I will never be detained by someone that says, crikey, like, I don't know.
You sound like Hagrid.
I don't know. Copper.
Yeah, but you're having to check with me that that's the term because you've never used it.
Copper.
You're trying to sound British for the purpose of this episode.
Oh, no, I'm not. I always say copper.
No, you don't. I've known you 5 years.
Wait, isn't copper American?
No, I don't.
Didn't your mum say cop car one time, and we kind of thought.
Yeah, cop, not copper.
Oh, copper, right? Well, I'm a fake UK person. Then.
Yes, you are. I will admit though, hearing Ricky Gervais' voice at the start, I was like, yes, this is actually British. This is right. This is what it's meant to be.
Is it near your way as well? Because I think his accent is like he's from Reading.
No, that's the outskirts of London.
So that's still pretty posh.
Yeah, it's like a half an hour, 20-minute train into central London.
No, that's mad. That's mad. What accent are we? Because I kind of feel like someone could almost, and maybe I'm wrong, go through our episodes and not pick up on the fact that we're from the UK just because it's not like Harry Potter accent that people expect.
But I'd say that's like this generation, isn't it, where you've grown up on American TV shows as well as UK stuff. You watched Scooby Doo.
Yeah, when I had to sneak it though.
Like, so I think naturally accents have just started to fizzle out and kind of voices have become more generic, maybe.
Yeah, and I'm not allowed to say copper without getting criticised.
Because I kind of refused to permanently adopt the Yorkshire accent.
What we should do for one episode, and it should have been this episode or the last one, we should have done the whole podcast in the Queen's English London accent.
No.
Oh, so smash or pass. What do I think about this episode featuring Ricky Gervais? Well, I tell you what, I think it's an absolute belter, I do, and I'd recommend it to all my compadres. You know what I mean?
You went to private school.
No, look, that's what we should have done, because I want the Harry Potter accent, because I want to be validated.
How frequently did you do fencing?
No,
How frequently did you do fencing?
No,
How frequently did you do fencing?
There was a class.
Oh, a class!
There was a class once a week.
Class!
Once a week on a Wednesday lunchtime in the sports hall for fencing. And that was pretty good. But I didn't sign up to
JayBee, how do you say castle?
Castle. You just said it. You just said it. You said it.
How do you say it?
Castle.
Castle. You say castle, I know you do.
No. My dad always said it like that, and so I've always kind of tried to rebel, like the bathtub. But we're on a mad tangent. But I'm a real UK person, copper.
No, you're not.
That's what I'm saying. So where are we now? Because my Britishness.
So they're in the antique store. They find out that there's a secret passage.
Oh, this is what I love about this episode. Okay, this is the only one I've identified so far that's actually had a genuine clue. Because I promise you, when that guy was licking the tape, and it was draped around Shaggy and Scooby, I was like, oh, well, maybe it is that guy and they're subverting expectations, because that does look like mummy cloth, the way it's on them.
Yeah.
And obviously it's not masterful stuff, but it was something I picked up on that you could use to say, okay, so whoever the mummy is affiliated with that shop, and I don't think any other like episode of Guess Who has had a genuine clue to who it is.
No, I'd agree. The mention of the passage, though, this is again formulaic because the last episode with Sherlock, there was the London Underground that led you to the Tower of London or whatever it was meant to be. With this, there's a passageway that leads you to the British Museum, but the difference is I didn't hate this, and I don't know why there was such a distinction for me. I think it's because it made the mystery make sense, so you could... Because when you saw that, I was like, oh yeah, they're definitely smuggling stuff out through that passage. Do you know what I mean? It
Is
served
the
more of a
British Museum,
purpose.
like, is it iconic outside of the UK? Because I would say
I
that...
guess, maybe.
Again, all that low-hanging fruit stuff, like obvious picks, you'd say Scooby Doo, London, someone's trying to steal the crown jewels. I don't know how obvious the British Museum is, and that's kind of why I'm like, it's not just like a caricature of London. It's, okay, like, you'd have an episode about a museum in, you know, classic Scooby, so if you're going to make it in London, yeah, you make it the British Museum or the Natural History Museum, like, it all kind of felt a bit more natural, less forced.
I'd agree with you on that natural thing because I think, and there's a reason that I'm searching something on my phone right now.
I thought you were just Skyver.
No.
Or Googling British terms to
No.
have my visa
So,
checked.
if you were to Google top 5 places to go in London, just out of interest, to see if it was just easy and, you know, trying to do a story. First place is the London Eye.
Oh yeah, classic.
Second place is the Tower of London.
Love to see it.
So that, like you say, it was an easy story. Third place, the Warner Brothers Harry Potter Studios.
There's a Warner Brothers Harry Potter
I took
Studios.
you to them for Christmas. It's
That
outside
wasn't
London.
in London.
It's a short train journey.
That's in
out.
Watford.
The London Dungeon.
Ooh, kinky.
Madame,
No, I don't know who that's good. I don't know.
Madame Tussauds, Westminster
Oh, yeah.
Abbey, Tower Bridge, Buckingham Palace, Kew Gardens and the Shard. Even in the top 10, there's no mention of the London Museum.
Why not do Buckingham Palace? They could have done like the Ghost of Princess Diana.
I'm gonna say that we'll leave The Crown to be controversial and maybe not have Scooby cancelled.
Oh, I don't know. I thought it would have been fun. But that aside, you see, you look horrified now, but it's okay. Let's continue with this. So, obviously, Ricky Gervais is doing his thing. He's making jokes, and again, like I say, it does seem a bit more genuine from him. But in general, I'm not busting a gut laughing my bottom off about how funny this guy is. I have in the past with his other shows, but again, here it's just almost too watered down, but I'm not hating it completely. Now, we do get another corridor chase scene, like I was saying, and this one wasn't the most interesting. I want to say it's the second most interesting.
I enjoyed this one the most.
It's my second favourite corridor scene. Because I think they do... I like it when they like incorporate the settings on. So we had some longboats incorporated here. My favourite one, I think, was actually the Sherlock episode. My favourite corridor chase scene.
I don't even remember.
Because there they had such wacky things like the sword and the stone, and it was funny. But there were some really interesting things in that episode. But here I think it's my second favourite. Are we at the unmasking? I believe we are.
Yeah, I think we're at the bit really where there's that... I've put good British banter of...
The unmasking.
The Velma being a know-it-all. Fred can't set the trap. How he keeps referring to it. And this is something that's British, I think. We like to be right in what we say. And if there's a difference of opinions, typically we assume we're right. Yes, JayBee. So, the thing about it being a cravat, not an ascot.
I've never heard of a cravat before.
It's like... what the UK would call an ascot.
Isn't a cravat like a big cucumber?
No.
A cravat. I've never heard that, so maybe I've failed.
Doing some Googling.
I failed the UK
Right, when you
test.
search cravat, this is what comes up.
Oh, it's like a posh person thing.
It's literally like an ascot. Like, you can wear I think people wear them for weddings. There used to be a judge on MasterChef Australia that wore a cravat all the time. Getting more images because they're not all as posh as that. These just, they're rubbish.
Yeah, I don't think it's important.
But yeah, anyway, so like it was just how we had to be right in our way of saying things.
Yeah, and it ends in somewhat jarring fashion with Ricky kicking them out of the house, but I think that kind of worked as well because
You didn't mention the Unmasking.
Yeah, I did. I said, are we on the unmasking now? And you went on about, oh yeah, this was British banter.
No, the bit before that was.
Yeah, then I said the unmasking and you went on about banter.
Okay.
You went on about, oh yeah, that was good British banter, that was.
British
the unmasking.
banter.
The unmasking, how jolly was that?
Banter.
So, the unmasking, it was the guy, and this is what I didn't like. I liked that it was the guy, but then Velma out of nowhere goes, because he's not really a antique dealer, he's a criminal mastermind that's been stealing. And it's like, I'm sure in classic Scooby, they did the bare minimum at least of having on the Mystery Machine radio, and the thief strikes again, stealing something else from this location. Whereas here we got none of that, and I think it suffers
Velma
for it.
being insufferable now at all.
No, there's just no. Come on, because it just annoys me about the writing of this. Like, we got our first genuine clue, and then out of nowhere it's, oh yeah, I guess we were meant to figure out that it wasn't really, like, why can't it be a crooked museum like creator or a crooked antique dealer? It has to be, oh yeah, of course, they were secretly a criminal and we were meant to know that with zero clues or zero setup. You know, I don't like that. It's a bit random. But what do you think, Millie? What's your overall prognosis?
What, like Smash Our Pass?
Yeah.
It was better than the last few episodes. It's a quite gentle smash.
That's pretty good. Pretty romantic, actually, if I do say so myself.
Like, it was okay. There was nothing I hated about it. I'm not going to go out of my way to watch it again, but it's not one that I'd be rushing to avoid.
See, I would watch this one again. I think it was pretty good. I love the villain. Again, I don't think there's a villain that I'm aware of in this series that tops this one for me. So I love the villain. The guest is a lot of fun, although not maybe just because I know him from his work versus, like, I don't know, Chris Paul, who I didn't know from anyone. But yeah, I think I will smash this. It's a moderate smash. I'm not prepared to say it's my favourite episode yet, but also I'm not sitting here saying that it definitely isn't. Like, it could be on reflection. I think it's definitely top 2 at least. It's either this or someone else. Like, so yeah, I don't know. So I'm going to smash this one. I did have fun with it. So yeah, thank you so much everyone for watching. There's not going to be much in the way of community news this time, apart from the fact that we've got another interview either coming out or that's come out, so please do watch that. If you do want to see more reviews from us, then please like, comment and subscribe.
JayBee Milly.